Chevrolet Camaro, a name known throughout the world, synonymous with horsepower. Synonymous with muscle. Synonymous with badass. And the fourth generation of the Camaro did not disappoint. The fourth generation of the Chevy Camaro was a big deal for many reasons. The first and biggest reason was the fact that it saw the end of the first generation of the Chevy small block V8. An engine family that spanned from the 60s all the way to the early 90s in the Camaro. And in its place, the fourth gen F-body saw two V8 engine generations. The first engine being the short-lived second generation Chevy small block V8 or LT1. It was produced in the Camaro from 1993 to 1997. It was a 350 cubic inch iron block with aluminum heads that produced between 275 and 285 horsepower, with the exception of just over 100 1997 SS SLP 35th anniversary models. If you talk to anyone that has ever worked on an LT1, you'll find out why this engine generation lasted less than a decade. I mean, you literally had to remove the water pump just to change out the spark plug wires. Then, something magical happened. The first engine to produce more than 300 horsepower in a standard V8 Camaro since the emissions bottleneck of the mid-70s was introduced. The third generation of the Chevy small block, also known as the most common engine swap ever, the all-aluminum 346 cubic inch LS1, which first debuted in the 1997 C5 Corvette with 345 horsepower. It first appeared in the Camaro mid-cycle 1998 refresh, producing 305 horsepower in Z28 trim and 320 horsepower on SS models. Outside, 1998 also saw a new front clip which gave it, in my opinion, a more aggressive shark look. The model you see here in front of me today is from 2002, the 35th consecutive year of production for the Camaro, as well as last year of production for the Chevrolet Camaro nameplate. That is, until it was finally reintroduced in 2010, a full 8 years later. The fourth generation styling is radically different than anything before or after. It holds true to the muscle car formula of a long hood and coupe body, but is the only generation with soft round curves at every corner, making the drag coefficient of 0.34 the best of any Camaro before it. Now another thing you'll notice when you're taking a look at this Camaro is it is long. At 194 inches, it's only 4 inches shorter than the Cadillac Escalade of the same year. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is show you just how uncomfortable the back seats are in these Camaros. I am 6'2", and I am going to show you what it would be like for me to sit behind myself. There we go. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Come on. Almost there. All right. My head doesn't have very much room at all. It pretty much is meant for anybody, I would say, under 5'5". Let's go with small children. Oh yeah. It's been a while since I've been in the back of a Camaro. On the steering wheel you have your volume controls, volume up, volume down, play, mute for a CD player. On the left hand side you have presets, AM, FM, and seek for the CD. Now on the center stack itself you got two vents. If so equipped, you would have a traction control switch to turn it on and off. My car does not have that, so as you can see There's nothing here, and the reason for that is that's where the power button is for the tablet. There's a blanked out switch there, but because of the fact that I do have the tablet in here, there's no reason for me to keep that. It's a very convenient spot to be able to turn it on and off. You got your fog light switch, an auxiliary port, which is nice, so you actually have two up here. And then one of my favorite things about the Camaro is this pull out cup holder for the 6-speed. I mean, you know, there's not a lot of room going on here to be able to use that while you're shifting, so I am a big fan of the pull out one. Moving to the back, each rear passenger does have their own cup holder. Lifting up the rear hatch will give you access to the 2-part trunk. The deepest part gives you decent storage for luggage or any other baggage. Under the right panel, you have your spare tire and amplifier. And of course, since this car is actually a hatchback, you can also fold down the back seats for a decent amount of storage capacity. You have a latch on both sides, which makes putting it down by yourself a bit annoying, but possible. And if you're trying to do it on your own, not exactly the easiest thing in the world to do, but you can fold that flat, which actually gives you quite a bit of decent room in this car. All right, let's get this bad boy on the road. Okay, so what are the first impressions you get when you get into a Camaro? Well, first, seats aren't too uncomfortable. There's not a lot of padding, but they do hold you decent. Now, I'm not talking about decent to where you could go on a track and you're going to be held in place, because that's not going to happen. How does it sound when you gun it? Yeah. I am a big fan of the Magnaflow exhaust that I have on this car. I did not personally put it on. It's one of the few items that I did not install myself. It was installed by the previous owner, thankfully. And, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. When it comes to horsepower in these cars, 310 horsepower doesn't sound like a lot to today's standards. You're running around in a Camaro now has 455 horsepower, so it's a huge gap in the horsepower rating. However, that C5 generation, the base Corvette, had 350 horsepower, and they said that they didn't actually detune this engine in the Camaro down to 310 horsepower, so it actually should have the 350 that came in the Corvette. If you do a search for it, it's all over the internet. You know, people that dyno these cars stock were getting, you know, 310 wheel horsepower, which would be equivalent to about 350 crank horsepower. So it's pretty nice that they did not detune these, especially the 01 and 02. It actually came with the LS6 intake manifold, which flowed better than the LS1 intake did. The reason they did it is, you know, based on cost. It's just cheaper to make one intake manifold than it would to make 2 or 3 or however many they were making. So the intake manifold flows much better on this year than it would for like a 98 LS1. That's why the horsepower ratings are slightly different, but nonetheless, it's definitely, it feels great when you stomp on it. I mean, just these cars will definitely go in a straight line just fine. I would not recommend doing a lot of curves. From experience, these cars are not really made to handle all that well. I mean, it's just not what they were for. That these things spin very easy. They're torque monsters. The rear end, even when I was running stock gearing, it was always hard to catch traction. I can still spin, it doesn't really matter anything. If you try to rev above 2,000 RPM and let go, it's going to spin. It's the way it's always been in this car. The LS1 engine is just a fantastic build. It's pretty much bulletproof unless you are doing something stupid. It'll last you, I mean, hell, it's lasted me for this long. The T56 transmission is awesome. These, again, bulletproof. It's the same transmission that my Viper has. The Chevy 10-bolt that came back there, it's just garbage. It definitely can't handle the amount of torque. Even the stock torque. I've heard of stock rear ends blowing up on somebody when they go to take off. It's just not made very well at all. Even with the 373 gears, the gas mileage in this car is pretty decent. I think it's 29 highway stock. I'm probably looking at 24, 25 on a road trip, so you can actually, road trip this car for a decent amount of fuel, considering the fact that it is a 5.7 liter V8. That's not bad. Let's see how it sounds going over these tune checks. Yep, quiet. It's not its thing. You heard every street noise, every noise in this car, and it's not apologetic for that. All right, so this lane is merging into the next one. Let's see if I can get in front of this guy. My goodness. Look at that. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but accelerating, pedal to the metal in first gear, the rear end actually started to get a little squirrely. Completely dry pavement, 70 degrees outside, it's completely warm, and I've been driving for probably 30-40 minutes now, and it was still fighting to catch traction. Oh, pretty dumb. Do a second gear pull. Hard into third. I think it's a great car for anybody that is gonna start trying to do any kind of real performance. If you can handle this car, my goodness, that's what I'm talking about. This suspension. Oh. But honestly, if you are planning on doing anything serious when it comes to racing, this is a great car to start out with because of the fact that it is going to be completely unforgiving. If you push too hard, you will lose control. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. In conclusion, after 12 years of ownership and countless smiles per gallon, I can honestly say that I still take a step back after parking and admire the soft curves and aggressive styling. It's not as comfortable as a Mercedes or as high-tech as a BMW, but it doesn't try to be. It was built using the American muscle formula, a big V8, plenty of torque, and a small back seat. As the 4th generation Camaro continues to age with grace, it will solidify itself as an American icon.